The first year, it was always Chevy. He'd do one of his falls, then he'd open the show. Fine. Then he got fired. We all agreed we'd take turns. I figured if we stayed on the air long enough, I'd eventually get to open the show. But now to be passed over and in favor of Gumby, some meaningless piece of Play-Doh, it's not fair.
Janie, what
do you
are
hear
we
me? It's
supposed
just
to do?
not
We're
fair,
already on
Davey.
the air.
It's
She's
not
right,
right.
Davey. She is absolutely right. I've been working on the show. I've been watching her work since day one, and she is a real pro. Jane's a pro. She does her job, and she does it well. While the rest of us have gone on and captured the hearts and minds of the public and press, Jane has gone virtually unnoticed. I'm glad to see you're asserting yourself, Jane, and I admire you for that. I'm behind you 100%.
Well, thank you, John. That's really nice.
That's okay. Live from New York, it's Saturday night.
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week on the Early Years of SNL, we're talking about Season 4, Episode 20, the season finale, with host Buck Henry and musical guest Bette Midler. This show originally aired on May 26, 1979. Brad, Buck is back.
Buck is back. More importantly, John Snyder is back. Welcome back, sir. It's been far too long.
What an honor. Thank you for having me back for the finale. It's always great to be here. It feels like a special moment whenever you wrap up an SNL season, and I'm so excited to be back here with you guys. It's been really too long.
It has
been.
Everybody was busy earlier this season when Buck was in. We had to get a replacement. He did okay. He was fine. But there is something about,
give Bill Kenny his due. Bill did a great job in your stead.
No, fuck that guy.
But no, it does feel like a proper end of the season having you with us. So welcome back.
Thanks.
And this season did feel like it needed a proper end because it really felt to me
It needed
anyway,
an end. Any end was
yes,
fine.
it needed an end at some point. This season felt like a slog in some ways. And it's not just because, you know, we talked to Rosie Schuster, who told us that this season was a slog for her and the writers. But as a viewer watching this season, I went through a lot of emotions, good and bad, with this season. So it's good to wrap it all up, I think.
Yeah, a lot of ups and downs. Started off, I think, a little slower than we wanted. And then there's that really nice chunk in the middle and then died off. So I don't know. People have been listening to us for weeks. John, what is your take on season 4? Are you a fan in general? What do you think?
You know, I know there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of admiration for season 4. I also find it really inconsistent. There's like really high highs and really low lows, whereas season 3, I just, tout as one of the best seasons ever. And I think they were just like really running out of steam towards the end here. And the last few episodes of season 4, if I recall correctly, before this one even, are pretty good. They're just, sort of like have this feeling of, they don't know if they're going to come back. They don't know what's going to be coming up next. I feel like they pushed themselves so hard once they all got super famous to like keep going with this show that I think it just puts them all in a really rough state in season 5, which you'll eventually cover. But, I think that we talk about, I think when I was here at the end of season 2, we talked about like that being sort of the last episode of the original show.
Right.
I sort of feel like this is the last episode of like the first golden era in a way, because season 5 is its own bag.
Sure.
So it is, it's really fascinating to take a look at, to talk about the departures of 2 all-time greats. And probably the last episode before like a lot of these people are doing like a ton of drugs and just trying to get through that last season.
They're going from a lot of drugs to a ton of drugs next season.
A ton of drugs. Yeah.
And there's some moments, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we get through, but there's definitely some moments in this episode where it feels like a goodbye, like a sign off, like a see you later kind of thing. So that vibe is definitely here in this episode.
It's good to have Buck back. As always, whenever he's here, there's that lift of energy you feel on screen. No exception for this show.
And it's a good episode. I mean, I think overall this is a fun Buck episode. We've now seen 8 of them, and I put this in the upper half of Bucks. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is certainly one of those episodes where when you hear people describe what it was like to bring Buck Henry in, is that it just feels like he's their safety blanket. They know they're going to get something good to end the season. They could pull out sketches that, are old recurring characters or ones that they feel like they just want to get out on the screen before the season's over. And it is really nice and refreshing. I remember just on the first time watching through to be like, all right, this is the thing I've been looking forward to because season 4 is so up and down. It's like, I know that there's a Buck episode on its way and I can rely on that.
Yeah, we've talked about that the last couple of weeks too, where the cast and writers were definitely looking forward to a Buck episode as well.
We had last week we had that discussion like, all right, how much are they just saying we'll just wait for Buck? Let's not put the foot on the pedal this week. Let's just get through it and save everything for Buck.
Well, should we just get into this?
Let's do it.
All right, so the cold open is Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill goes to Saturday Night Live. He has tickets for himself and Spot, but Mr. Hand takes Spot's ticket and rips his head off. Then they go to the show. Sluggo's the page. Sluggo's around. And then Mr. Bill is wondering why they haven't started the show. And Mr. Bill gets to say, live from New York, it's Saturday night. Until the opening credits are interrupted and we go to the control room where Jane is having a fit and telling Davey Wilson that she has never said live from New York, which is true. And she really wants to say it.
Fair.
And then, of course, John comes in and agrees with her, but he then has to be the one to say live from New York. I was really excited for Mr. Bill to have his moment. And then I was really excited for Jane to have her moment.
And then you got real pissy that John got it.
And then I got real pissy that John got it. Exactly.
Which, of course, because at the end, I'm like, and in hindsight, I will admit, it was a good send-off for John. I'll take it.
You know, this distinction, though, between someone saying live from New York solo and with a group is bizarre to me. And it always has been. Like, it's not like Jane hasn't said live from New York before. She did it at least a couple times in season 2 with the entire cast. Mm-hmm. So I get it. You know, when you're only like 7, maybe it's like more of a stat. But they are playing it like she's never opened the show before. And the whole cast has opened the show. But this was great. And if you know me, you know I love the meta of all of this. Just the idea that we're going to open up on this Gumby like figure, which is, again, really fun in retrospect that they called Mr. Bill Gumby to get him sat on, to open up the montage. And this is something I wish they would do today, where they play with the format of like, hey, we're going to start the show, completely subvert expectations, and then head to the control room. So I didn't even mind it. And given that it was Belushi's last episode, I'm okay with him getting this moment. Like, it worked for me.
I agree. I thought it was so much fun to see them go meta, and kind of in a way they haven't done before. Like, they've always done meta, but this is like a new twist on them going meta. So I liked that. It was fun seeing Mr. Bill. I think this is the one, Gary, that Walter told us Lauren asked him to do. Like, he specifically said, we want you to write this for the show opening. Yeah. Which is really fun. And then I think Franken took over and wrote the control room segment. And it's just great watching Jane stop everything and yell at Davey and her and John. I think it's really fun.
It really is. And it's something we haven't seen before with Mr. Bill starting the show. And the crowd is really excited, as they are at this time in season 4, to see Mr. Bill. So it's a great way to start the final episode of the season, I think. Well, for the monologue then, Buck is back and he's here in his cardigan, as he always is.
I feel like he's worn this outfit at least 4 times already. No?
I think so.
Else? Right?
It's his comfort. He's comfortable in this.
It's his uniform.
Yeah. He's here and he is out to prove that television is not a cultural desert full of debauchery. Because he's cerebral, television can be. And to prove that, they've given 25 members of the audience these devices on their heads, and then we see them. And it measures their interest in the show throughout the night. They're measuring the AIQ, the audience interest quotient. So
I'm impressed you wrote that down.
I rewound it and made sure I got that right.
Okay.
So then Buck goes into a typical Buck monologue where he is just talking. And he's talking about Proust and how smart TV is. And we see the picture on screen get smaller and smaller as the audience loses interest. And then he mentions cleavage, and all of a sudden the audience is back. And then he goes back. And then he's talking about boring stuff. It gets smaller. And then Suzanne Summers, it gets larger. Again, this is another instance. It's the same bit with Buck, except instead of the scrolling text, we get the change in screen size. And he is perfect in his delivery. Like, he does not miss a beat. And he makes this so much fun.
It's fantastic because, you know, we're so used to getting the subtitle monologues from him at this point that they become a trope.
Yeah.
So I think part of the thought had to be, what else can we do visually on screen so it still sort of stays a Buck Henry monologue without doing the exact same beat? And I think just playing with the visual effects of zooming in, zooming out whenever they're going to talk about Suzanne Summers, like that type of thing, I think it really, really hits for me. I could have done probably without the part in the audience of like showing them having those devices. Like I get it. It was like a gimmick to sort of explain the premise, but I think it would have been just as fun to say that they were measuring people at home and how they were reacting live to the monologue and then having that visual thing happening at the same time. This is one of my favorite Buck monologues, honestly.
Yeah, it's really fun. To your point, John, I was waiting for the Chiron. As soon as he started talking and going into a speech, I'm like, where's the Chiron coming up? And then they do a great job of changing it up. I feel like we've now seen 8 different monologue, like 8 different versions of a Buck monologue. Like everything is a little something different. It's the same take on what they do of making fun of Buck, but it's a different way of showing it visually, like you said, which was funny. And some of those zooms were hilarious when he mentioned Suzanne Summers and it snapped back out wide real quick. And same thing for Jane Russell. Like it's really good. And they do a great job. It's fun to watch.
Well, from there we get a live commercial with Bill in front of a green screen. He's doing a live commercial for Ray's Disco Roller Fishing Park, where you can roller skate and fish at the same time. He's got a fishing vest on and knee pads and elbow pads because he's also wearing roller skates.
Bill is in 100% to this character. It's fantastic to watch.
I love that his name in this is Ray, Brad, because last week I called Dan's character Bill, but his name was Ray. Also, there's a little connection there.
Go.
I thought this was a lot of fun. And I liked Bill being the 1-2 camera with the live commercial. I just think he worked really well.
Yeah, it's Bill in a rare pitchman role, but he kills it. He just is having so much fun.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I know they didn't know it was Danny's last episode when they filmed this, but it does feel like a little bit of a passing of the torch moment. Bill Murray is going to really dominate season 5 and do a few of these pitchman roles, and it feels like this was something that would have definitely gone to Dan at an earlier point in the tenure. So I couldn't help but think about the logistics of like just how this was working in the finale with the way that things ended up. Bill does a great job. He's going to continue to show how, much of, I sometimes I call him like a 5-tool player, like how many different skills that he can bring to this show. But this particular skill happens to be like right in Danny's wheelhouse on his last episode. And I'm always like, wish we got one last Dan Aykroyd pitchman here.
It's funny. I didn't think of it that way. Kind of the passing of the torch in Bill, because I don't know if Dan would have been good in this role. It's so like silly and absurd. I thought it played to a Bill Murray performance, not a Dan pitchman. I wonder who wrote it because it's very much in his wheelhouse. I feel like just the character and just the bumbliness of it. He's got that great physical humor at the end. Gary, you said he's on the roller skates and he falls down. He's like, "I'm gonna get up. Yeah. I mean, get down." It's like a funny little throwaway line at the end. I think it's the physicalness of it all, just the absurdity played to Bill really well.
Yeah, I don't know how Dan's manic energy would have played with this. Because when he doesn't have that manic energy, we've seen this a few times in the last few episodes, actually, where he's doing a live spot and it just kind of falls flat when he's not that really wired Dan character.
And to your point, as you said, they didn't know it was Dan's last episode. I think everybody knew it was John's, and we'll talk about it. I think there's moments you can see they're kind of saying goodbye to John in certain points in this episode, that if they knew or had the inclination Dan wasn't going to be back, I wonder, maybe we do see something like that. And you look at it as his last episode, you'd like to see some Dan stuff. You'd like to see the pitchman. He did one a couple weeks ago, and then, he did the cold open last weekend. So we have gotten a little bits of those Dan-centric things leading up to the end. But like you said, knowing what we know now, I get your point about maybe seeing something.
Well, from there we go to the Samurai Bakery, where Buck comes in because he needs a wedding cake for his brother's wedding, which is the next day.
Of course.
This is the last samurai that we see.
Last one. Yeah, number 14.
It's all the same beats, but again, because it's Buck and John, the way in which they interact, I think works really well.
It's practically the same set from the first time we saw them, that kind of deli set. It's almost the exact same set.
But it was still fun. I mean, it's fun, I think, part of that is probably the nostalgia, knowing that it's the last time you're going to see this, but also just the performances and the writing, I think, on this were still really strong, even if they are the same beats.
I think it helps we haven't seen this in a while. We haven't seen it since Buck was on earlier this season. And this is actually the first season I went back to check in. This is the first season that they did not try to do Samurai with somebody else. So we haven't seen it since Buck early on in the season. And I feel because of that, everything you said, Garrett, like it feels a little bit fresh. It is the same beats, but you haven't seen it. And we all know how great Buck is with it. I think that all just kind of played really well to it.
I think also part of it is that Belushi has, or people who have been there to see Belushi prepare for this character knows that he like really gets into character with the samurai. I remember, I think this probably came from when we interviewed one of the finalists for the Everyone Can Host contest.
Yeah.
And she was talking about being there during the week, during rehearsals to see him prepare for this. And like, I don't think it's one of those characters that John just snaps his fingers and then just becomes the samurai. I think he like needs to be like there during the week rehearsing this. And because of his in and out filming stuff, being sick, like all of these things, like I think they never could have put this on with somebody else in season 4. But knowing that Buck was coming in, that he always does this character with him and that it's his last episode, I think it made sense. And this to me is one of the better additions that we've had of this. It almost felt like the samurai from season 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Just the way that it felt really grounded. There were similar beats there, but I thought they were having a lot of fun with it. The whole, the master baker stuff.
It was a great line. That's really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Of course, we're going to get the classic like sword in and out of the holster. And then I thought it was great. You know, I don't know if you guys noticed the little like ode to Buck where he said he wants to take The Graduate off the top of the cake.
Yeah, it was fun.
So,
and I actually like that. I like that gag. You know, you knew something was coming when he took the sword and like cut the top of the cake off and then put the bride and groom on. You know, it's like we've seen that a bunch of times, but it somehow worked. I like how they made a little bit of a change with the ticket number. You know, I think that was the very first time we saw it where he's calling out Buck's name like 4 times and finally like here. And this time they changed it a little bit where he calls out a number 4 times. And as soon as he moves on to the next one, Buck's like, here I am. I like little changes. It made it fresh. I don't know. It didn't go long. I think we've seen a couple of these with Buck where they've gone on a little too long. This felt like it didn't feel old at all. I don't know. I did like it. Like John said, I think it is one of the better outings. I actually have this doll. I have this Belushi samurai doll. He's in the baker with the backwards cap on and stuff. It's like, that's another thing. I just like to love this sketch for that.
That's how Brad goes to sleep every night with his little Belushi doll.
No, that one's too small. It's on my dresser. My bigger one is the 16-inch plush one that I have in my bed. Oh, that's just regular samurai.
Yes.
With removable sword. The sword does come out of the holster on that one, just so you know.
Right. Oh, your wife's a lucky lady.
Yeah, tell her that, please. Next sketch.
Oh, we open with footage of Martin Sheen and Rip Torn.
Amazing. 2
of my favorite actors.
Amazing.
Yeah. This is actual footage from the miniseries Blind Ambition, which aired earlier this week on CBS. And it was a 4-part series, Brad? Is that what it was?
4 parts, yeah.
4-part miniseries about the Watergate scandal, told from the point of view of Dean, who's played by Martin Sheen.
Based on his book.
Right.
Which they lampooned before. We had when Dick Cavett, right? Dick Cavett was hosting and he played John Dean writing the book.
Yes,
like season
that's right.
2, I want to say.
Yes. It was his second appearance. Yes. Then the camera pulls back and we see that it's actually the Nixon family watching this.
Here you go, John. I was excited to get Dan back as Richard Nixon. I'm like, all right, here we go. Haven't seen this, I think, since way earlier this season. The New Dick with Walter Matthau, I think, right?
Yes.
So I was excited to see Dan.
Yeah, I'm glad we got like at least an iconic impression for him in his last episode. Like that was exciting. I'm trying to think, like, would it have been good to get him as Jimmy Carter one last time in this one too? Like, I guess the Nixon is probably the better one of the 2 impressions, but it's, anyways, I guess, again, they didn't know that he was leaving, so it's hard to say, right?
Yeah.
Right. But there's not a lot of Dan in this episode. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for it being a season finale.
Right. I think, this sketch, first of all, I really like the family dynamics of the sketch, but beyond that, the premise of this is so funny. The idea that like the whole thing with Nixon was just like a giant misunderstanding because they were playing a joke with each other. Really, really top notch.
Yeah. This sketch is great because so we go to the family dynamic, like you're saying, John, and we see that Nixon is explaining to them how this entire thing, blind ambition, is wrong because they were just joking around, and all of the transcripts, all of the recordings they just got from the transcript, so they didn't understand the sarcasm that they were putting.
Yeah, the inflections,
everything.
the way you say things can be different. Like you say it, I'll say it.
Why don't you try I love you?
Look, we've made the point there. Now, you got enough ice? Is your drink okay? Just let me finish talking to my daughter and her husband, all right? Now, where was I?
You were saying that they took those transcripts and they twisted them around to make you look like a crook.
Yeah, that's right, kitten. For example, the scene we just saw, that March 21st meeting with Dean in the Oval Office. The way they showed it, it makes it seem like I authorized raising the hush money. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Let me tell you how it really went down. You see-
Excuse me, I'm going upstairs to watch the rest of the show and find out what really happened.
And that's where we see the flashback with Buck and Dan in the Oval Office. And it is so wonderfully done between the two of them, egging one another on and speaking directly into the microphone and then laughing quietly. It's a lot of fun.
They're writing on a pad of paper. Let's pretend there's a cover up. And then, and the two of them just crack each other up. Let's talk in incomplete sentences. And like the two of them, I laughed more like watching them laugh at each other. It was so fun. And they do play the Nixon family well. Like you mentioned, John, the family dynamic. Like Jane, of course, is great as Pat Nixon once again, just bitter and miserable. And they love beating on David Eisenhower. And Bill does a really good job on him.
After Nixon, we get Bette Midler. She comes on to sing the song Married Men, or The World is Full of Married Men. This is our second week in a row
I had that
we hear
note
a
too.
song titled Married Men.
And what a 180 in performances.
Yes, it is.
Like, oh my God.
I don't know what was going on in 1979 that there were so many songs about married men and women sleeping with married men, but I don't know. I wasn't there.
1979, baby.
The background singers are in tuxes and wedding gowns, and Bette Midler's in a really tight dress bouncing all around.
Is it possible that just because all the men were only getting their wedding cakes the day before their wedding?
Yes. This song was actually released by Bette Midler and Bonnie Tyler at the same time. And Bonnie Tyler's version was used as the title for a film titled Married Men. The title
was
song. It was.
I knew this was her single for her album that came out that fall. She tried to go disco, and apparently it was like, I think her worst album, critically and commercially, that came out when Bette tried to go disco. But my one note from watching this song was just, this performance is brought to you by cocaine. And I mean that in a good way.
I actually thought these were pretty decent performances.
No, I like this song. I thought it had like a great energy. Like she performed it well, and she kind of had like a lounge singer vibe to her. Like I wasn't knocking it. Like I actually did enjoy this performance, especially after the performance that we saw last week of Married Men. I was like, where was this? This is great.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a finale performance. Like this is like the type of energy that I would want for a finale versus Sun Ra. But this was fun. I like getting the band in there. I think we got Luther Vandross in this one.
We did. We did. He was one of our backup singers. Yeah.
Very fun fact there. Cool to get the SNL band and him and her. So I would say not mid.
Yeah. And like you said, John, it's a finale get. She's a big deal at this point. She's had a bunch of big numbers. She has a movie that'll come out later this year, her first movie. So, I mean, she is a big name at this point. So I think you made a great point. They finally got a good finale musical guest.
It was a fun performance with a lot of energy.
Yeah.
No matter how they got there.
Yeah.
They got there. That rolls us into Weekend Update. No
Nothing.
ads, no funny, nothing. Just straight into it. We get a 3 Mile Island joke, a John Wayne joke, a Pierre Trudeau joke, John, for our friends up in Canada.
Thank you for that.
Uh-huh.
Well played.
And then Garrett comes on to talk about the Rolling Stones song Some Girls.
Now,
I'd like to speak about the subject of a certain Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. And I'm going to talk about the song he sang, a song in which he sings these very words. Black girls just want to have sex all night long. Now, Mr. Jagger, there is only one question I want to ask you, Jags. And you better have the answer, man. You better have the answer since you have besmirched the character of black women. Therefore, here's my question, Jack. Where are all of these black girls? Hey, where are they, baby? You got any phone numbers for me, baby? Please send them to me. Thank you.
This, as soon as he started in on this,
come on, this is funny.
I'm not saying it's not funny. I'm just saying I saw this joke from 1,000 miles away as soon as he opened his mouth.
Talked about the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, he's like, you're talking about black women who want to have sex all night. Yada, 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 yada. Where are these women? Like, it was so telegraphed, I thought.
Okay.
And Garrett doesn't hide it at all. I don't know. John, what's your hot take?
This might be my favorite thing that Garrett's ever done on SNL.
Ever? It's great.
I don't know if it's like if that's a compliment or not, because I do love Garrett, but like obviously there's other things that are like, oh, like warm your heart, or like he does like Chico Escuela I do like it's all that, but like just like in this moment, I've never seen Garrett with as much confidence performing ever. Like it just felt like this, like the swagger of the moment, and like it was probably probably part of the performance of like it really just felt like something that I was like, this is the type of Garrett that I wish we got to see more of. Like the playful, even though you could see the joke coming, that's okay. That's like a lot of the stuff in the 70s is like, you know, the beats because there's only 7 cast members and you know what they're going to do. We know Belushi's going to like fall down if he comes on an update. Like it's okay for me, but I would have rather this been a thing that he's just like kind of a horn dog who like is, you know, it really worked for me.
He pulls it back just enough at the end, too, after he goes off about asking for their numbers and where they are. And he throws the glasses back on to look dignified again. He's just like, thank you.
Yeah, that was funny.
I thought it was a great like return to the character. I did like it. I don't know. Best thing Garrett's done. What episode was it, Garrett? Was it Margot Kidder when we kept saying like Garrett was knocking it out of the park? He's had one recently this season where Garrett had a really good episode where he was in like 3 sketches pretty well and like performed.
I think so.
Good in all.
I'd say like
them.
less like maybe this isn't Garrett's best episode, but this may be Garrett's best individual moment.
It is a great bit. It is a very good Garrett bit. I agree.
Let me go back. We have some jokes about the NBC logo, Ted
logo.
Kennedy and his mom, Rose Kennedy, and then Roseanne.
Did not
Rosanna
get laughs.
Dana.
That joke got groans. What was the joke about Ted Kennedy? Oh, about
he said he wouldn't run for president until his mother died, and then the follow-up was Democrats are trying to figure out how to make that happen or something.
How to make her meet Jimmy Hoffa. She's going to go meet Jimmy Hoffa.
Oh, that's what it was. She was good.
And again, I thought it was very funny, and the audience did not like it.
Rosanna Dana comes on to talk to us about cars on the road for Memorial Day weekend and going to the beach, and it devolves into her seeing Jane at the beach.
Yeah. It was supposed to be about gas.
In her bathing suit. Yeah.
Supposed to be about the gas crisis or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and then she just goes off about Jane the entire time, which, of course, makes Jane angry, and Jane yells at her, and then she sings a song to Jane.
A song her dad used to sing to her that was actually about Jane. That was written in 1956. I liked all that. All that absurdness was great.
Yeah, I think the mix between the sweetness of their dynamic and the absolute disgust that Jane has for the character always gets me. But especially in these finales, like I think that is like a really nice way. It's like a send off to the summer. So I thought this was a great addition of Roseanne.
I like the opening Richard Farter wrote a limerick this time, which I thought was funny. I did laugh out loud at the limerick.
Yeah, and the song was good. Like, it was cool to sort of have that thing of like, you think it's going, like, it almost had like Emily Latella vibes into it, where you like think she's going to go in the right direction and actually sing something sweet,
Right.
but then goes exactly where you think she will, and then like starts talking about the stuff in her eyes and all of that.
And that's it. That's our weekend update.
Yeah, short, but decent, I think. I feel it was a decent weekend update.
I agree. And I think the jokes this week too, even, just the news reads, I thought were really good and tight, and they were well delivered. I just thought it was a good weekend update.
Yeah.
Well, from there, this is the first time I think we're seeing this with you, John.
We are. John's been waiting a whole season for this. Welcome, John.
I know.
Thank you.
We get Uncle Roy. I don't have to set
Gary does
anything
not
up
like
here.
this character.
Really?
Gary does not like
I
Uncle
don't.
Roy.
I don't.
I've had a rough podcasting journey with talking about Uncle Roy, going back to the days of the SNL Hall of Fame and nominating Buck Henry, where I spoke to Thomas about this and I did not know how to properly express my feelings. And I feel like as I've developed as a podcaster, so I could explain that I genuinely love these sketches.
Mhm.
Just the understanding that these are written by women, and it's more meant to like have fun and expose these types of characters in a way that they weren't always talked about on television. Like, I think the idea that now there's like, you can go on YouTube anytime you want and watch like true crime documentaries about anything, like normalized the discussions around it. But I think it was less easily digestible then. And I think that like that was the fun of it. And I also think there is this incredible tension in these sketches that you get watching it from the audience, which is, when will the parents come home and catch him in the act? And you watch it like on bated breath to be like, even though it's a sketch, you're watching it, you're like, okay, how far is he going to go? And then at what point are they going to catch him and be like, what are you doing, Roy? And I think that dynamic that's established there, like, I almost care less about the dynamic between Roy and the girls, and I care more about Roy getting caught or not, I think is compelling as hell for me.
And I think they do a good job with that idea and that construct in this particular sketch, because they've done it once. They know what they're doing, and they know, whatever backlash and stuff they may have gotten from the first time. And they're really playing with the line of what is acceptable. What is acceptable? What you can do? What can't you do? What is okay? And, everybody obviously is game for it. The writers, as you mentioned, like Buck obviously loves the character and has wanted to come back and do it. Gilda and Lorraine. And it's funny, the point you made, John, about the tension between Buck and when the parents are going to come home. It's a very interesting ending they do for this sketch, where the girls tie him up and they go to bed and Buck's just left there. So you're left to wonder that at some point the parents are going to come home and find Buck tied up, and like, what is the explanation that this character gives for being tied up in the girl's room? So I think I enjoyed this sketch more for like that kind of a take than the comedy of it. I enjoyed like what they were doing of like, we're going to be ballsy. We're going to see how far we can push the envelope, and we're going to really go somewhere with this.
I did like some of the jokes that they had where the girls are asking Uncle Roy to tell them the story of Eddie the Eel and Debbie the Donut. And these are things that are happening in front of the parents still. And he's like, and they talk about going down the banister. And to your point, John, he's saying these things and he's hushing them up because he doesn't want the parents to hear. And there is that tension of like, is Jane going to react to this? But she doesn't. Yeah. Laundry Inspector was one.
I like the joke.
Maniac.
Yeah, I like the joke they had where he's like, Simon says, and touch your hem, pull your skirt up over your head. And then he's like, you didn't say Simon. He's like, Simon says higher, higher, higher.
Yeah.
I'll also say there's like a built-in establishing characteristic that Buck has with the SNL audience, in that we've talked about horny Buck so many times, because you get like those monologues where he brings someone down from the audience. And like, there's just other moments in SNL history prior to this where we set up that he could play these types of characters, and he just has that like normal looking dude with a sinister quality to him that I think plays a lot better than if, like, let's say this character was played by a creepy looking person, like off the top of my head, like a Steve Buscemi or something that has like sort of that like that vibe where he could like easily play into like the creeper. But Buck Buck had to build that in already to this. And I think that's like a huge win for the sketch that they're able to do this because he's established that.
And it helps that he carries a Polaroid camera around with him and takes their pictures.
Not anymore. He can't find Polaroid film. They do not bring this back next time Buck hosts in season 5. They wait until the season 5 finale for the final installment of Uncle Roy. And they do a little, tongue in cheek's the wrong word. Like they do self-reference the sketch and the series of sketches on a final outing. So it's a little interesting to note that too, just in the story of the sketch itself.
Well, after Uncle Roy, we get the Franken and Davis show. Franken and Davis come out, and now Al is a Hare Krishna, and he has perfected the knowledge of what is funny. And instead of Franken and Davis, they are now Adishibad and Davis. And they start telling jokes, and nothing is landing for Tom. He's frustrated.
They're supposed to be laughing, not meditating.
He eventually just cuts off Al's little bit of hair in the back, like the ponytail.
You got to give Al credit for shaving his head.
Did he really shave his head?
I mean, I was looking. It looks like he shaved it. I didn't see a bald cap. I thought he committed to the bit. I don't know. What do you think, John?
I would think he shaved it. I mean, he has like a nice Jufro going that I think he wouldn't want to get rid of.
And it's like season finale, so he's not going to be on camera anytime soon. So he's got time for it to grow back. That was my rationale of why he shaved it, because it was the finale and he could afford to.
Yeah, I feel like no one's ever asked him that before. So if anybody out there has an opportunity, I would be very curious about that.
Well, he gets upset because now he looks like a Buddhist once his ponytail is bald, and then they start fighting.
I like how he turned back into old Al Franken the minute Tom cut his hair, and he starts yelling at Tom and getting upset. That was good.
Yeah. I mean, it was a relatively short Franken and Davis for what we've seen from them lately, I feel.
It was okay. What did you think? I don't know. You like these more than I do typically.
Yeah, it was fine. It wasn't great. I don't know. I kind of felt like Tom's anger and frustration I understood, but he like the first joke, he ramped it up and he was angry right away, which doesn't seem like a Tom Davis thing.
Right.
Yeah, I almost wish they were both in on it. Like they both were in character for it. And that there was some tension that was developed between the two of them where they both end up breaking at the end and getting angry and like losing their peaceful vibes. I think him playing off like, okay, like doesn't work as well for me.
I'm reminded of the Pepsi syndrome where they're both mimes. So and then Tom's like, I told you this didn't work. It'd be the same thing. They're both being Hare Krishna. Then finally Tom breaks. Like, I told you this wasn't going to work. And
that feels more them.
That would be funny.
I agree. I like that. Well, then we go to the Olympia Café for the last time. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that they had a fire. And how do we know this? Because it doesn't look right. There's something wrong with the whole thing and there's no customers in there. But then Gilda comes in and we get the explanation of what has happened.
It looks like there's like soot all over the place. You can't read the writing on the window that like it's closed or whatever, but yeah.
Right.
Lorraine's sweeping up the remains off the floor.
Buck and Garrett come in as cops.
Yeah.
In and out very quickly.
Yeah.
And then Jane comes in as the insurance adjuster. And she's interviewing John on what they've lost. And it turns out he lost golf clubs. They've all lost golf clubs.
You've all lost golf clubs? Yeah. They worth 100, 200, 400.
Yeah. And then when he asks where Bill's character, Nico, lives, he says that he lives in the restaurant. And then she tells him that he's lost all of his insurance because it can not be a home. And
right.
And then the cops come back.
Then they come back again.
And then John is disillusioned, and then they all dance off because he's Greek. He can dance.
Yeah, this is the one. I wrote this note. It felt more like a final chapter than a comedy sketch. And you kind of got this. We didn't mention it in the Samurai Baker scene, in the Samurai Baker sketch, where usually there's the freeze frame at the end. And this episode, when they finished Samurai Bakery, John just sat there and like waved goodbye to the camera. And again, like looking back, so you kind of like, okay, again, looking back now, okay, he's gone and he probably knew it. And so this sketch to me felt more like a reason to close the chapter on Olympia Café. It's one of those ones we've always liked where Don Novello writes, and it's building. There's like a story. It kind of builds upon each other. We haven't seen this since, there's another one since the Walter Matthau episode. And they referenced it. That was the episode where Brian Doyle Murray played the Coke guy and they came back in and switched from Pepsi to Coke. So I like how they referenced that right at the top. But other than that, there's not a whole lot there. And it's interesting. I was reading, I got the script for this, and the dancing's not in this final script. It was Lorraine yelling back the cheeseburger, 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 and Bill repeating that it was supposed to fade out. So seeing the dancing at the end, which is very reminiscent of John's Don't Look Back in Anger dance, feels again just kind of like a sign off and a see you later kind of a thing.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think that's exactly what this was. It was probably just like an ode to the ending of this and how to, close almost like the series of sketches that I would say, because I think, I've described this before, and it was probably on with you guys when I first described one of these sketches early, maybe it was in season 3, that I love these sketches because it does feel like a sitcom within the show. And I think like the dynamics that they establish are so layered, the relationships that are there, like you have to watch the previous ones to properly understand the next ones. And there's just a lot of interesting storylines that they built in. We got the story that Nico was there and had to break through the window. Like there's so many things that we built in to get to this point where we get to the crux of it, which is that Jane as the adjuster is there and is going to end up, Belushi's going to end up getting screwed over for having Nico sleep in the back, which is a storyline that had already been established in previous sketches. Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot of rewarding the audience for being fans of Saturday Night Live to enjoy this sketch. And it pays off in dividends if you were a big fan of the show. And that's why I love it.
You know what I didn't like in this sketch? I didn't like the casting. I felt like Buck was wasted as a cop. Like, I don't even think you needed those cops. They really didn't do anything, right?
No, I mean, there was more exposition of John telling Gilda that you don't charge cops for food or they won't show up when you need them.
I kind of would have liked Buck as the claims adjuster. Like that would have been fun, giving John the spot. Not that I don't like Jane, obviously, but I don't know. It just felt like a weird use of Buck in that role, just to come in and say a throwaway line like twice and then leave. It would have been fun. Thought it might have been more fun to see him as the adjuster and having more of that John Buck dynamic one more time.
Right.
I just wonder if they sort of looked at this as the last like proper sketch of the season. Maybe things got reordered in a way. I'm not sure if you have that info, Brad, with some of the documents you picked up, but this has the entire cast in it. And like, maybe it's a way to say goodbye to John with the whole cast in the sketch.
I believe it was earlier in the original rundown. I think it was earlier in the episode. But you know what? And Gary, you're gonna love that I say this. I did notice in watching this episode, we did get John's 2 only real decent recurring characters this episode on his send-off. Samurai and Olympia. I only say because, we'll always argue how much, John's worth to the show and how vital he was to the show. And these are really, aside from his one-off impressions, like this was it. Samurai and Olympia.
Well, I think we're missing the Blues Brothers too.
But I wouldn't count the Blues Brothers because they were like the musical guest. I just, as John, as far as like the comedic output of the show, it made me second guess my John worth, Gary. That's what I just.
Oh, really?
That's what I'm like. I'm looking at it like, John, we were talking about Dan's leaving. What would you want to see from Dan? Pitchman, Coneheads. What else? Something, you know what I mean? But I was like, John, it's like, there wasn't like there was a great big character we didn't get. It's a lot of impressions, one-offs.
Yeah, in a perfect world, we would have gotten performance by the Blues Brothers here at some point in the episode.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
That's true.
Know. Part of me feels like Lorne wouldn't want it because he was so pissed at them because of what Blues Brothers was doing to Dan and John and the show that he's like, I think you've had enough. But I hear what you're saying. That would be cool. But again, too, like no one was doing send-offs. It's not like the last 10 years where cast members are leaving and let's throw a big party and make a big deal out of it, which I never like that. I like when they just kind of vanish and leave into the darkness.
Yeah, you have a cold heart.
I do. But I hear it. But it's interesting. That's an interesting point, though, John. Like they would have closed the show with the Blues Brothers or something. That would be cool.
Yeah, better than what we got.
We'll get there. But first, we get Bette Midler back for her second song, singing a song written by her friend Tom Waits, Martha.
Yes. Yeah.
This performance was the complete opposite of her first performance.
I agree.
There's no big band. There's no background singers. It's just Bette Midler. You hear a piano. The piano's not even on stage with her. She has gone from this really tight dress that pushed up her boobs to an oversized black shirt. And she sings the song Martha, which I thought was beautiful.
I agree. It's a great song. But you're right, Gary. Complete change vibe of the first song. It's interesting. So this wasn't what she had rehearsed and wasn't on the show notes for this episode. It was another song called Twisted, which was off her second album. She had rehearsed that. And even in the episode script, it's that song's in it. So I don't know when she made the change to do this song. I had read trying to find out, I guess her mother had died a few months earlier. And this might've been kind of like in her memory in honor of her mom. Cause she is, and I did go back and watch it a second time after reading that. She's very emotional in this performance. Like it's a very heartfelt and emotional performance. And I could see this song being something maybe she changed on the fly because like you said, she just stands at the microphone in a spotlight. So it's very easy to direct, the cameras don't have to do anything. It's just her the whole time until the very end. You kind of see a little bit of light come on the backup singers in the background. So it's very sparse arrangement. But I thought it was really good.
We don't see any of Davey Wilson's camera tricks there.
No.
So if this was a later, change, he didn't have time to do.
But you didn't need to. Like I think it was a really great performance. Like you just let the performance tell the story and just cut when you need to cut. And I thought it was really nice that way.
I don't know that I have a strong opinion beyond that. I just think they did it right with her. Like I think if you're gonna, you got a good finale musical guest, you're gonna do the big number to keep the high energy portion of the show, and then this is what you want. Like if you're going to do something more low key, you do it later on. So like I wish I had a more nuanced analysis, but beyond the fact that like this felt very pleasant for a really good episode of the show.
This is her only performance on SNL.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
correct.
That's interesting. Right? Yeah. I mean, she's been a star for the entire run of the show pretty much, and for her to only come on once because she is a funny person.
You would have liked to seen her come on to do Wind Beneath My Wings.
Why not? Close out season, I don't know, was that like season 15?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Fun fact, Bette Midler received the Kennedy Center's honor in 2021 alongside Lorne Michaels.
Lorne?
Yeah.
That was a fun fact, Brad.
The COVID year.
I'm going to tell everyone I know.
You tell those two people and let me know if they knew it.
That's how we were promoting our coverage of the Kennedy Center at that time. The Bette Midler Michaels reunion.
They're back together.
Well, after Bette, we get a Schiller's reel. Clones exist now. This is all about how, I guess the first test tube baby was born in 1978 or 79, around that time. And now we have a series of interviews with some scientists and some parents at the park, and they talk about how they have a clone child so they can just throw it in their luggage when they want to travel. I don't know. Not one of the strongest Schiller's reels for me.
It's one of the more bizarre ones, I feel like. Kind of out there.
Yeah. Fun fact. I was a test tube baby.
What?
Really?
Yep.
I feel like I'm going to talk about this now.
Well, that is a fun fact.
That is a fun. That's much more fun than mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only was I built in a lab, but I also ate my twin.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Tell me more. This is like now we need a different podcast. This is a totally different show.
Well, so I didn't know about this for a very long time. Like for some reason, my parents thought this was like a big deal. I'm sure it was then. Like I was not saying like, yeah, I'm sure they spent a lot of money and they did this whole thing. But like my parents are a little bit older. My sister's 9 years older than me, and they had been trying for a while. And I guess it was the early 90s, and they were trying to figure out what to do. And they ended up going to Toronto. I'm from Montreal, and they went there and they built me in a lab. Or I guess there's more steps, but right. we're in the not ready for prime time portions.
I mean, I legitimately don't. I'm just asking the question now, not to be on the show, but
Brad legitimately does not know how children are born.
Anyway.
Okay, so my dad did it in a cup,
Right. So is it like no, like the test tube baby thing is like the precursor to like a surrogate? Like, am I wrong? Or
Well, yeah, that would mean like I was cooked in a different oven, but I think my dad did his thing, like opened up those, opened up probably. I'm gonna hope that it was a picture of my mom, but just in case it wasn't, it could have been a magazine. Yeah, whatever. I didn't ask my dad. And then they take that and I think they inject it in to the oven of my mom.
It's like a precursor to in vitro bread.
Oh, that's better. Actually, I understand. So you still were in the oven.
Yeah, I was still.
Oh.
Yeah.
I legitimately don't know. I'm not a scientist, Gary.
No. I'm
smart.
glad that you explained that by the oven you meant his mom.
Well, because I don't know.
I meant my mom's vagina. So,
I didn't mean it that.
Yeah. But
I legitimately didn't know if like the 9 months was. I don't know. I don't know these things.
No, it wasn't like one of those things where I was like in an incubator.
Right.
And
I don't know
was
this.
like cooking.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, I think it was just like there, instead of like the regular act between man and woman, there was like sort of a step in between where it was man,
right.
science, woman.
Got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is why I am the way I am.
That's so interesting. When did they tell you?
I think it was like a few years ago. Like it was
really?
Oh, it wasn't like you were 15.
And it wasn't like let's sit you down, like, son, you were born in a lab. It was like just came up like randomly. And I was like, what the hell, guys? And then they were like, and yeah, we thought you were like, we had twins for a while. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, I went through the whole like process of like what my life would have been like if I didn't eat my twin. And then like, do I have...
Oh, so you were serious about the twins thing. There was possibly two.
Yeah, there would literally be two hosts of the Saturday Night Network right now.
I would like if your twin dove into
very
Fridays,
bad TV of my,
and he was obsessed with Fridays.
Yeah. But
wow.
Yeah. But
so then, how did you feel about this this Schiller's Reel?
Oh, I hated it.
Oh my God.
Okay.
No, but I don't know. It gave me nothing. All it did was just make me think about the alternative life that I could have had. Yeah.
Like being shoved in the luggage when your parents traveled. I did like that line. The mom, she's like, well, when we travel, we just put them in our luggage. And I was like, wait, what? They're still people, aren't they? I didn't understand that part.
Yes, they are still people. Well, all right.
Speaking of genitalia.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a good segue. We have Joan Face hosting this show, Not for Transsexuals Only, with Buck Henry playing Chris Randolph and Lorraine Newman playing Lynn Hagstrom. And they have switched sexes. So Buck is now a female, and he has donated his organ to Lorraine.
There's a good joke where Joan asked Lorraine how the transition goes, and she says, it's quite an adjustment, a big adjustment. And Buck just looks over. Yes. Thank you. She's like kind of grabbing her crotch when she says it.
Yes. I liked the joke where they talk about being friends and hanging out, and she asks Buck how he feels, and he says detached.
Yeah.
This was a pretty quick talk show.
It was quick. Yeah. I mean, it's really just, like you said, one joke about them switching genders that they played up a few different times.
It was snippy.
Hey now.
Yeah, this was okay because only in the fact that they were having fun with it. Like, I think that there's a world. Actually, I probably shouldn't say this. For some people, they wouldn't like this. But for me, I was like, all right, the subject matter is a little bit tough, especially like watching it from our lens today. But like, I'm like, you know what? Like, they're kind of having fun, making some jokes. Like, it's not like a heavy sketch. So I think that makes better.
Yeah. No, I agree. One of the funniest lines I thought was when she asked Lorraine what she looked for her future. And she goes, I want to pork as many broads as possible. I mean, it's such a 70s line. Like, I laughed out loud. It's hilarious. You're not going to say it today. People aren't going to find it funny, but I thought it was hilarious.
I thought Lorraine was really good as a man. And
I agree.
We've seen her as, as a man at other times, but I just felt like like the way she was sitting and holding herself and talking, she's good at it.
And Buck was good. I feel like we've seen Buck in drag before, because I feel like I've made this comment that didn't he look like Jack Lemmon from Some Like It Hot?
Yes.
I feel like that's not the first time I've said that about Buck Henry on this show with the wig and all.
I think you're right.
The original version of this sketch, I think I was telling you this, Gary, before, they wrote it for Buck to be Buck. So when they introduced the characters, Lorraine was her character and Buck was Ms. Buck Henry, screenwriter of The Graduate and co-director of Heaven Can Wait. And when they asked about what are you going to do in the future, Buck replied back, I guess I'll just go on hosting Saturday Night Live until it drives itself into the ground.
Ooh, I like that so much more.
Yeah, it was Buck and Lynn or whatever. And so the early, I think the drafts, at least the read through, I think maybe, were that way. Because this is a Tom Davis one I found. It was with Tom and Rosie and Ann wrote this one. And when I went through the first draft, it was interesting that he played Buck the whole time, or a female version of Buck.
That is interesting. I thought this was the end of the show.
Well, I was going to ask you before the end, now that we've seen it, and to John's good point about the musical guest, wouldn't it have been better to end on Bette Midler and that song?
Oh, 1,000%.
They've done it so many other times, and this was actually a really good song. And now that John was talking about it, I was like, oh, they just should have pulled these things up and put her at the end.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah.
But instead, what does he call him?
He's
Expert impressionist.
Impressionist, yeah.
Michael O'Donoghue is back, this time doing his impression of Elvis, getting needles into his eyes. And then it rolls, and then he's running around and falls off the stage, and he's going all through the audience,
he's in the crowd,
doing his thing,
flailing on the floor.
And that's it. There's no like good nights or anything. The credits start to roll. Like Buck comes back up on stage, and the cast joins him, but that was it.
Yeah.
It felt like it ran a little long and then they just rolled into it.
Maybe. Because like you said, there's no proper good night, really. They all come on and start waving.
Yeah.
We've seen it, 4 times before? 3-4 times before?
I think 4 times before, yeah.
It just feels like they wanted to make this feel like the Buck Henry formula, and he's always there doing this during the Buck episodes. So they're like, let's just bring him back in and do it. He's probably in the building for the finale to like celebrate with like all of his friends that are still there. So I get it. I just like don't need this again. And like there's so many other fun ways that I would have liked to like end this episode. So for me, it's always like a little bit of a downer.
It was just interesting too that like that was the good night. Like the season good nights was him rolling in the aisles. Like it wasn't like a Buck goodbye good night kind of thing. I don't know.
And I get it when he's the head writer, because it's like it's like his show and he like wants to do this, like that's fine. But when he's just like coming in to do it, it feels like dude.
I know, it's weird. And it's like it's just very interesting to see him come back, especially since this was just a couple months after NBC wouldn't air Mondo Video. So it's but I guess I reached out to Dennis Parent to ask him, like, did you know anything about this appearance? Like, Mike, did he say anything to you about coming back for this finale? And he said no, other than that Brian McConaughey apparently, in dress, I should say, he didn't do the bit. He told the audience he's going to save it for on air. So he didn't do the in the eyes and rolling over the floor. And apparently, I guess Brian McConaughey came up to him afterwards and said, you should do that on the live show. Like, tell the audience, you guys have seen this. I don't need to do it. And like end it like that, which I thought would have been so much better. It would have been great.
Yeah.
Like
again, it would have been something different.
Yeah.
Like a twist on it. And then it's great.
But instead, like we're left with this bizarre send off.
Also, he said like 15 to 18 inches and he was holding his fingers like more than 2 feet apart. But anyway,
the exaggerator.
Yeah. That was the thing that I found wrong with it.
That's what bothers
the size of the needles. Yeah.
Yes. The inaccuracy in his measurements.
Yeah. That's it. That's our show. That's our season.
Good episode.
Season finale. Yeah.
Solid finish to the season, I think.
Yeah. And congratulations, guys. It's, quite the feat to cover so many episodes. So the fact that you got to the end of season 4, like, incredible job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It has taken us a lot of whiskey to get here.
Yeah.
You're about to get into a ton of drugs.
That's right.
Yes, let's do it. Yeah, I don't know. What do you, John? On a whole, the episode, where's it rank roughly on our buck lore of 8 here? You think?
This was way better than the season finale last year.
Yes, 100%.
And the episode of season 4, the first time he came on, like episode 5. I think that this is the best Buck we've seen since his episode early in season 3, I think.
I liked earlier this season a little better with the Dead. I think because I like the Grateful Dead so much, and as an episode, I liked that episode a little better.
Yeah, I think this for me is like out of the 8 episodes, it's probably like 4.
I feel like it's in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a middling, it's a Bette middling episode.
That's twice, John. That's twice. Well, John, what are your best bits?
So I'm surprised to say it, but okay, so I really was glad to see Samurai here at the end of Belushi's career. I think this is really solid. The fact that they did it, it's like you would think on paper, like, oh, they're doing another Samurai, but in practice, it was really well done. Obviously, everyone knows the blind ambition sketch is good, but I think I'd rather go in a different direction and say that like the recurring stuff here for me felt like very like right at home and felt like a solid episode of Saturday Night Live for the original era. So I think if I'm going to limit it down to 3 things, it'll be the Samurai, Olympia Café, no doubt. And I'm going to give it to Uncle Roy. I really feel like there was some really smart writing in the way that they built up the sketch. I know that sketch is not for everyone and it's a little like tenuous as to how you feel about it, but I feel like confident in my feelings on those sketches at this point.
Brad, what are your best bits?
I got another direction. I do the cold open. Love the cold open. Tons of fun. And I have blind ambition. I just because I'm a big fan of like Nixon and that stuff, and I think Dan was so good at it. So those are the 2 I thought were the best.
I had Samurai Bakery as my best bit. I also really liked the roller. What was it? The roller fish
fish park.
Disco roller fish park.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that for what it was.
It's funny. Bill was light. You mentioned Dan being light.
I was
but
just
aside
going to
from
say that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Bill really featured.
I feel like no one was heavy tonight.
Yeah.
It was a pretty sparse show for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, that time was filled with the Franken and Davis show, the Schiller's Reel, even the For Transsexuals Only was just the, Lorraine and Jane from the cast. And we didn't see a lot of Garrett.
Nope.
As per usual, I guess. But all in all, it was a solid show, a decent finale.
And to John's point, knowing it's Dan's last episode, kind of a bummer we don't see him more.
Yeah. John, thanks for doing this again.
As
always
always.
fun to see you. What's up with the Saturday Night Network for this summer? What are you guys doing?
Well, thanks so much for having me. We're doing a really fun countdown this summer where we are counting down the 50 greatest SNL episodes of all time.
Oof. Cicely Tyson has got to be up there.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how many episodes from the original era make the 50. You got to think maybe at least one in season 3. That's probably like a no doubters making it in, but how many others will get there? It's interesting. As of recording, I don't have the results yet, so it's certainly interesting to speculate where that will go, but I'll be live with Bill Kenny every Monday night from June all the way through September to count down those episodes.
Nice.
We're also going to have more episodes of everything you need to know about Saturday Night Live coming out
Awesome.
on our YouTube channel. So very excited for that. We are continuing into the 20s or the mid 90s. So it is really, really exciting time. I'm so proud of those episodes and just really excited to put them out into the world. So head over to the Saturday Night Network to check them all out. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, at the SNL Network on any social platform. And thanks, Brad and Gary, for having me back on.
Thank
it's just
you.
a blast to hang out with you guys. And you guys are so impressive with all of the work that you do here, and happy to be collaborating with you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'm happy to hear everything you need to know are great. If anybody hasn't checked them out, go watch those. They're great 14, 15, 18-minute chunks to catch up on seasons at a time. They're so fun.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to listen to you and Bill count down this, what I think is kind of a Herculean task.
I know. Good luck.
50 best episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into lots of debates. That's the fun of those shows, is that no one opinion is right, but we get to argue why we think they're right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Next week, we're wrapping up season 4.
Thank God.
Right?
It's been a long season.
I mean, you liked it better than I did, so you can
I
imagine
did.
how
I'm just
I feel.
tired. We fell victim like a lot of people to the 50th, and we put out a lot of stuff this season. So I'm excited for season 4 to come to a close and take a break. But I did like season 4. I did enjoy it a lot.
Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Have a pleasant tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please take a moment to rate and review the project wherever you find us. You can also find us on social media everywhere at NR4PT Project. Thanks again for listening. Have a pleasant tomorrow. Give Bill Kenny his due. Bill did a great job in your stead.
No, fuck that guy.